Hello there! It's Friday, which means it's time, once again, for the best movie podcast ever. The only movie podcast to offer objective and hyperbole-free discussion of every movie in the known universe. I am your host, the podcaster with no name, Konrad. With me as always, with great power comes great responsibility. It's Anthony James.
Have to be that one. Hello everyone.
I gave away the good one. I gave away the good one last week, and then that was the only other line I could remember from...
I mean, that's a good one, to be honest with you. That is a good one. You gave away the meme one last week.
Yeah,
and
I mean, they say
the nostalgic one this week.
They say it often enough in these movies, let's be honest.
Yeah.
For those of you who haven't figured it out or read the title of the video you're watching, we're talking about that there Spider-Man movie. It's Spider-Man No Way Home this week. I'm going to say right off the bat that we will talk about spoilers at some point in this video later on, but don't worry, don't you fear. You can listen spoiler-free for, I don't know, half an hour, let's say. Mark it on your watches. Well, it'll be about half an hour from now, but don't worry, you won't be spoiled on anything. Anthony, how are you doing?
Doing very well, Konrad. Conrad doing very well. I think did a little brute force dice there. Yeah, but moving into Christmas quite nicely. I think when this video releases, it will be Christmas the next day. So, very exciting time.
The season.
So as you're listening to this, I'm probably sitting there with a nice wee hot chocolate, potentially a Baileys,
Oh, very
the
mischievous.
greatest trick of all time, the Baileys. Do you know the trick about Baileys, Conrad? For a little opening segment banter here. Do you know the trick about Baileys, Conrad?
What's that?
Well, they were invented like in the late 70s or 80s, and their advertising campaign was all about how it was traditional to have a Baileys at Christmas or whatever, or a traditional Baileys. And it's like it's only a new company, but they successfully tricked the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the diamond industry in like the 30s convinced everyone that like engagement rings had always been diamond, when in fact they actually just wanted people to buy diamonds, and now that's all that anyone buys for engagement rings, apparently.
I was about to say I didn't, but actually no, I did. Our main stone is not a diamond, but we have little diamonds around it.
Okay, yeah, no, I did as well, because I am a hypocrite, quite frankly. But the less said about that, the better, because otherwise we'll dwell on the darkest recesses of my own opinion of myself. So without further ado, let's talk about some gosh darn movies.
It's all going to be alright in the end, Conrad. Let's do it.
I don't believe you.
Well, 100% it is not going to be all right in the end. I don't know what the end, whatever the end is of anything, it's not going to be all right.
By its very definition, the end is going to be bad. Movies. We're here to talk about them. First things first, we need to get this out of the way because I'm excited about it, and I think you're going to be excited about it too. I don't know if you'll have seen this yet, but have you watched the new trailer for The Northman, the new Robert Eggers Viking movie? You know
I've watched it, Conrad, because my wife has worked on that film. So she's it's going to be the first thing. Everything my wife has worked on beforehand has been for a streaming service or a TV show. So this is going to be the first time that we see my wife's name in the credits on the big screen.
That's going to be awesome. So I'll get your opinion in a second, but I'm just going to say it looks fucking cool. I like Robert Eggers a lot. And I was expecting it to be... I think we've talked about this, not necessarily on this podcast before, but the kind of Nicholas Winding Refn, I can never pronounce his name
Valhalla
right.
Rising, was it?
Movie Valhalla Rising, which is a bit more of a kind of psychedelic, sort of horror-ish movie, I guess. And I thought this was going to be more in line with that, but it seems from the trailer, which is not necessarily representative, but the tone it's striking seems like it's more kind of just a kind of medieval, almost action-y kind of movie, really.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, obviously, everything is behind closed doors, but I don't know what's going to happen in the film, but I know someone who does, funny enough. But I think that it is probably going to be the most, I don't know how to put this. I don't think action-y is the way to put it. I think there will be some action in it, but it's going to be like the most mainstreamy type of film that he's done so far, which is interesting because I think he'll do a completely interesting take on that sort of revenge film plot sort of thing, because the way the trailer portrays it is that, like, he's been away for a long time and he's coming back to challenge his brother or whatever it was. I can't quite remember.
Yeah, it's like a revenge fantasy.
Yeah, so I would imagine that this will probably be in line with like his other films in tone and stuff, but it will have that sort of traditional revenge plot to it, which is new for him actually, because he's always, maybe it'll mean that he'll grab more viewers that way. Who knows?
Possibly. I actually don't know how many people saw The Lighthouse and The Witch. I know I saw The Lighthouse in the QFT, guys, ever in Belfast. That's Mark Commode's selected cinema in Belfast. You need to go there, Conrad. You need to go there, Conrad. Lovely. I think I walked past there not 2 days ago. In fact, that's the one near the university, isn't it?
It's right next to Queen's University.
Yeah. Well, I walked past that the other day. It was lovely, lovely, quaint place. But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that. I just wanted to mention it because it's a Robert Eggers movie and it's got an all-star cast.
Looks
and
good.
I like 2022 is looking up if that still manages to release that year, which we all hope it does.
Yeah.
Okay, Spider-Man. We talked a bit about. Yep, he does whatever a spider can, so I hear. Spins a web anytime, catches evil just like flies.
Hang on, where's the spider pig come in?
There is no spider pig. We don't. Actually, well, there is now that into the Spider-Man.
Actually, yes. Actually, that's actually funny. Yeah, I didn't realize I was.
Spider Pig. Yeah, I've made a fool of myself there, to be honest. But we'll not dwell on that. There is. I know I said no spoilers. There is no Spider Pig in No Way Home, which is the movie that we're here to talk about. Mm-hmm. They didn't get to that universe. So first things first. I mean, we talked last week about Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Or the various Spider-Man movies and what we thought about them. I don't think I have heard as much public clamour around a movie. Around any movie really since the Avengers, but certainly not a Spider-Man movie as there is around Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yes, well, I think it's really because they're bringing in all the bad guys from the old ones. I think it puts it across 3 different generations of people. I think you have my generation and your generation who grew up with the Tobey Maguire ones. You've got the God bless them. You got the Andrew Garfield ones. Yeah,
and the forgotten middle child in the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man films.
And then you've also got these new ones. And I think as well as that, like there hasn't the buzz around these characters coming in. Has grown and grown and grown, and I think the marketing campaign for it has been very successful. And you're right, it does feel like the biggest moment in sort of like the MCU anyway since like Avengers Endgame. That was the last time where they had this big massive thing, and it probably is because of the MCU that this film is as hyped as it is. Spider-Man films were I always really enjoyed them, but they always did just sort of come out. And then they were a good superhero film for a few months or a month in the cinema, and then they were gone again. Whereas this one does really feel like it's been hyped up, and then it's really performing as well.
It's a tentpole release, which is nice. I mean, I kind of rag on MCU films sometimes because they're kind of made to formula, which I still think is true. But
I think your criticisms of them are made to formula as well.
Oh, how dare you? How dare you suggest that my hatred of these movies is anything less than genuine? No, I do like a lot of these movies, but it is genuinely nice to have like a movie that gets people excited. Like gets I don't use the word normal here disparagingly, but it gets your average person excited and talking about movies, because I feel like the movie business, as it is at the moment, is a lot of people who are already kind of semi into movies, or at least into the idea of a certain kind of movie, just talking cyclically about it on social media, and to kind of that's part of this as well. But I think there is just that hype cycle that's getting random people to bring their families to see it. And as you've said, it is showing up in the financials. Not that means everything, but it's easily the biggest movie this year so far at the time of recording this, which is the 21st of December. 3rd biggest movie opening of all time, adjusted for inflation.
That is, considering the state of the world, that is tremendous.
Yeah, I think it's just beaten by, I want to say, one of the Star Wars movies, and maybe Endgame or Infinity War, one of those two.
Spider-Man, like, this is the thing. Spider-Man has, unlike the Avengers films, I think you're going to get parents taking younger children to see a Spider-Man film.
Possibly, yeah.
I think you're going to get 6, 7, 5, even 5-year-olds going to see a Spider-Man film. My kids are too young, but I think, there was some moments where you probably have to shield their eyes. But I think because it's a PG, and I think it's actually a 12A technically, actually. They'll let you in. I think.
You give them a little nudge at the door and be like, "Look, they've seen some stuff, all right. Don't worry."
Like just for some reason, Spider-Man, and even for my son, there's a show on Disney Plus called Spidey. They're trying to indoctrinate them young, right? And for some reason, kids love Spider-Man, and it's maybe because they know what a spider is, and this guy's like got the powers of a spider, and they can contextualize that in their mind. It's like they don't know, like, what the hell's America? Like, they don't know Captain America. Batman, like, my son, I had to convince him that Batman was a good guy. He thought Batman was a bad guy. Spider-Man, for some reason, just they all, like, the blue and the red, they just love Spider-Man. And I think there is something about him.
He's colourful, isn't he? He's colourful, and he's presented as a child, his and I think I will get into this when we actually start talking about the movie, because it's probably one of my biggest criticisms of all of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, and this one doesn't escape it. But I think Spider-Man as a character has always been, the thing that I've always really liked about him is that his whole shtick is essentially punching bank robbers and trying to get through high school or work as a photographer, and juggle being Spider-Man with like a tumultuous love life. And it's like a very grounded story, and I think kids...
Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, basically.
Yeah, exactly. He hangs out in Queens and arrests bank robbers, or webs up bank robbers, and it's all very kind of grounded in the reality of Peter Parker, and I think that's something you don't really get from a lot of the other Marvel superheroes, certainly any that have been realized in the MCU so far. But yeah, so this has made more money than Infinity War now, so it's on track to be
in the opening weekend. You mean?
Well, no, just overall. Like it's already made more money than Infinity War.
Seriously?
Yeah. That's been out for a week. There's no way that's going to be more.
It must be at the same time.
It must be at the same time, yeah, because there's no way that's
Infinity War made like nearly $1 billion. Maybe even over.
It's made 500 billion in its first week.
Whoa!
Yeah, everyone went to see it. But okay, so
Jeff Bezos went to see it like 100 million times.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos actually bought all cinemas in the world to watch this movie, and then we launched him into space, and he never came back, because that's what we should do with Jeff Bezos. Okay, so let's talk about Spider-Man: No Way Home, 2021 release. It's the end of the John Watts directed Spider-Man trilogy. Amy Pascal has said there is going to be another trilogy with Holland. They haven't said if John Watts will return to direct it. And essentially, and this again, we're not doing spoilers right this second, so don't worry, we're not gonna get too deep into anything. But the plot is essentially that at the end of Far From Home, they've done me up a kipper by naming all of these movies.
They have, and you know what? It's funny. Like they released a funny video where they had like a whiteboard in the background with all the potential names, and every variation of home was on there. Also, really? I just want to say, like, just a little side thing about the name. I think this name maybe it was Far From Home, or maybe this one was released. People have really jumped on the meme of Tom Holland spoiling everything, right?
Yeah.
He probably did it like twice or something, and now everyone just jumps on it. So, but it's got to the point where there's like really obvious like Disney sponsored Tom Holland fake.
Oh
leaks.
yeah. Like board approved spoilers.
But what I don't like is that they put them people put them in the like compilations of him actually spoiling stuff, and I'm just like, who's fooled by this? Like, who's actually fooled by this corporation taking advantage of this thing that happened once? Anyway,
that's like the kind of little kind of ecosystem of Marvel movies and the videos that cover them, though. Really, isn't it? It's like Marvel. And I will be honest, the hype around this I found a little bit insidious, because the Twitter account was like, oh, if you don't want to get stuff spoiled, use this hashtag and everything. And it was like, I don't know, I don't like when brands pretend to be people, and that one just... I know they do it all the time, but that one rubbed me the wrong way a bit. And then, as you say, you've got stuff that is clearly like board-certified leaks, and then but you've got this whole like ecosystem of like YouTube channels that are like, oh my god, I'm reacting to Tom Holland spoiling something, and
754 Easter eggs,
Yeah. Here's all the times that Tom Holland told us that carnage was going to be in this movie, and it's just nonsense. But I appreciate this is those in glass houses, given we do make videos on YouTube, but.
Yeah, I'm gonna release an Easter eggs video about this film tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm not really. I don't have the time for that. Jesus Christ.
No, who has the time? Certainly not Spider-Man, because this movie picks up pretty much immediately, or literally immediately. There's no pretty much about it. After the events of Far From Home, he's web swinging with. It's not Mary Jane. She says her name in this. It's MJ. It's Marie Joseph? I think she's.
It's Jones Watson. I can't remember what her first name is, but it's her sort of double barrel last name, Jones Watson.
Yeah, so it's Jones Watson, but it's revealed in this that MJ doesn't stand for Mary Jane in Tom Holland's.
Because Jones is the J. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but I don't know what her name is actually.
Well, I'll call her MJ. We'll call her MJ. We'll be familiar about this.
Let's call her MJ.
But he's swinging around with MJ, and J. Jonah Jameson reveals via the dying act of Mysterio that Spider-Man's secret identity is that of Peter Parker, high school child? That doesn't sound like the right phrase. High school teen from Queens. And essentially, the plot of this movie is that through this revelation, his life is ruined. The lives of his two best friends, played by Zendaya, and I can't remember his other friend, the actor who plays his other friend's name, but their lives are ruined. Their college career or their college prospects are kind of ruined. And Parker approaches, as we all would in this situation, Time Wizard Doctor Strange to say, "Can you create a spell to fix this for me?"
I like this actually. I like this plot point because this happens. This needs to happen more. If you're going to properly, Marvel's properly intertwined with each other, why wouldn't you go to Doctor Strange to fix anything?
Absolutely.
Why? Yeah, it makes complete sense.
Yeah, it'd be like, I helped beat Thanos. Do me this solid. Yeah. Let's just rewind 24 hours and deal with this. So I think that bit's really cool. And essentially, Doctor Strange creates a spell to try and wind back time. Wouldn't you know it, things go a bit wrong, and villains from all different multiverses are pulled into his universe, and he must then deal with them. That's your plot.
Yeah, and it's put across that the villains are dragged in because the whole point was
they know who he is.
They know who he is because the spell was messed up. Now, I am a stickler for details, as you know, Konrad.
Yeah.
I don't believe that Jamie Foxx's Electro ever knew who Peter Parker was.
I never saw that movie, so I can't say, but I believe you.
I don't believe he ever did. Now, at a certain point in that film, he becomes one with the grid or something. So potentially, just because he was in the grid, he knows who everyone is.
Yeah, he's reading all of their emails.
Yeah. But I just don't think that really happened. But yeah. So it was actually really interesting setup for a film. The idea of these characters coming through, I think it does suffer a little bit with the whole lead up to this. Everyone was talking about the Sinister Six, and it has to be pointed out that there are only 5.
They could have had 6. They could have had the 6th member of the Sinister Six. Unfortunately, we don't get Michael Keaton's the Vulture. I can't remember if he died in Homecoming or if he's just in jail.
He went to prison.
Okay.
Could have had the Vulture. Could have had Mysterio coming back potentially, but I don't know how he would really work in this because it's the way Mysterio worked in the last one.
That's right, Mysterio is it? I'm trying to remember who. Shockers. The Sinister Six has had so many iterations at this point. I don't think it even matters really.
Oh yeah, exactly. But
Rhino's normally in there as well.
We weren't getting Rhino back. Let's be honest.
That was the one I was hoping for.
But the thing was, the way it was put across was really interesting to me. I think that it suffered a little bit. Because whenever you have a moment like this where you have all these other characters coming through, because there are other characters which exist, which it makes sense to think of, it's well, why didn't they come through? And there's no explanation as to why Rhino didn't come through, or no explanation as to why. I mean, I'm glad he didn't. But why James Franco didn't come through? There's you know what I mean?
Imagine a haggard James Franco, a 60-year-old James Franco, or however old he is now, staggering through.
Jeez, what is with you and people?
I just don't like James Franco.
Oh no, you shouldn't like him. You shouldn't like him. He's a bit of a creep, to be honest with you.
I just age up anyone I don't like as a defense mechanism against them being more successful or more handsome than me.
It's funny about James Franco. I can actually probably still watch The Disaster Artist and not be creeped out by him because he already is a creep.
Yeah, he's playing the part perfectly.
Yeah.
It's very, very method of him. Yes, I mean, okay, so you've kind of struck upon it. So I think this is the first point we really want to hit here, which is that this is essentially fan service, the movie.
I don't like. Okay. I'll let you say your thing, then I'll disagree. Oh, no, I'm not going to disagree with you, but you know what I mean.
I don't mean this like dismissively. Basically, what I mean is that they don't spend a lot of time with any of these characters. They don't really have any interest in exploring the characters that they're bringing in. It's all really in service of giving Tom Holland's Spider-Man a few moments of genuine kind of like emotional pathos, I think, throughout this movie. And it mostly works, I think, but it is kind of noticeable that Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin / Norman Osborn and Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus, it's no, those guys are the, and to a lesser extent actually Thomas Hayden Church's Sandman, those are the best actors that playing the villains, and those are the ones that you really kind of empathize with, because they're able to do a lot with the very limited screen time and lines that they're actually given.
Okay. For one, I would say like the effects on Sandman now are way better than they used to be. I think they did a really good job there.
Oh yeah, they definitely are.
I think that Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus having the most put into them makes sense, because they were the most well-built villains from the previous films. Like they were building on top of a mountain, whereas for the other ones, like the Lizard and the Electro, like, to be honest with you, like, and they just made fun of those characters, and then also Jamie Foxx's Electro was trying to get over how much of a pathetic loser he was in his film. So like they had a lot of stuff to try and fix. With Lizard, they were like, you know, let's just make jokes about Lizard. But for Electro, they were trying to fix him a little bit, which did hurt the characterization a little bit. I think it's still, as you say, it's still actually everything still kind of worked actually, but the ones which are the better villains from the original films were better in this as well. And I to be honest with you, like, if you were to think about that, I think the amount of screen time, like, or like actual time devoted to the storylines of the Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus, I would say maybe 10 minutes to Green Goblin in a 2.5-hour film, and I'd say maybe 7 or 8 minutes to Octopus. So it's not nothing, but obviously, if it was a single villain film, you would have like 45 minutes to an hour. You know what I mean? It would have a lot. So it does seem strange in one way, but it does work maybe. And maybe it's because we know the characters already, but it works for me. It works for me.
I think if you had different actors playing these parts, it wouldn't work, because they are like, you're relying upon audience nostalgia to get you a lot of the way there, but Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina's performances are so good.
You would basically have Justice League.
Well, yeah,
like,
exactly.
Obviously, it was the good guys that we didn't really know, because
you'd just be like, "Who the fuck is Steppenwolf?" I don't know.
What's
going on here? But yeah, as I say, it's a tightrope to walk. Especially like from my own point of view, anytime I see someone like leveraging nostalgia, I'm always like, my bullshit meter immediately goes off, and I'm like, okay, you just using nostalgia to replace the fact that this is actually good. But I think they walk it very well, and I think they get just the right amount of kind of fan service, or they use their kind of fan servicey elements to good effect here.
I think it's a fair point. I'm not one to rile against fan service for it just being fan service. I think there are times when fan service is the right thing to do, because the whole idea of fan service is that you're giving your fans what you want. But I think what you're pointing to is more of a wink wink nudge nudge sort of fan service, more towards leaning on nostalgia type of fan service. And yes, there are 1 or 2 moments in this film which take you out of it.
There's a moment when we get into spoilers. There's a moment we get to talk.
There's 1 or 2 moments in the film which do take you out of it. Which okay, like, I laughed at a few things, but it would have been a better overall film watching experience. Yeah. If they didn't have it, but at the same time, like, I genuinely think that this film didn't, like, this weirdly, as one of the most hyped up films in history, didn't didn't disappoint. Like it didn't disappoint, which is really saying something, you know.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I will. Okay, so I'm going to talk the kind of plot MacGuffin stuff now.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably the worst part of the movie, and I don't mean to say it's awful. I just think so. You've got the spell in a box, which is essentially MacGuffin that Doctor Strange creates, which is the spell to make everyone forget, and they put a button on it, and when they press the button, all the villains will go back to their own worlds. And Peter Parker decides, no, I'm not gonna. It's not this theme of taking responsibility for his problems and his own actions, rather than letting others fix it, which in this case is, sending these villains back to the worlds they came from and letting the Spider-Men in those worlds deal with them. Like, he has to deal with them himself. I'm totally on board with that. I did feel that it just kind of felt a bit messy. The kind of the way they arrive at, like, oh, we're going to cure these villains of their villainy, which is kind of the central plot of the movie. Is we're not just going to kill these villains, we're going to try and fix them.
Which does work for one or two of them, but not all of them. Like you understand, like Dr. Octopus, it makes sense because in the original film, like, his chip got broken, and you can understand that would work. I suppose Green Goblin kind of made sense to me too, because if you are injecting him with something that's an anti-thing. Electro, like, that guy, he is full of electricity now, but that's not why he's a dick, you know?
But I think I'd be interested to get your take on this, but I found myself watching that they spend a long time kind of getting to this point where they're gonna do like a 15-minute sequence of making the cures for the villains, and the whole time it was going on, I did find myself being like, isn't this kind of like retroactively cheapening those other movies if, like, this Spider-Man can just whip up a fix in 15 minutes that makes them all not villains anymore?
Well, I know what you mean. Having said that, you have to view it in the context of this particular universe being so far, because of Tony Stark, basically. It's so far ahead. Tony Stark and also Hank Pym, as well as alien technology being brought in. Like, it's so far ahead technologically than those other ones that it just makes sense, to be honest with you. I think it's another one like the Doctor Strange thing, going around to his house and saying, here, can you fix this for me? It makes sense. It makes sense to me that you wouldn't just ignore the fact that this world has had what's happened in the last 26 films happen, to the point where the world has so much higher level technology now. I think that works for me as well.
Yeah, I guess so.
I know what you mean about retrospectively cheapening, though. I don't think it does, but I know exactly. Like, it's kind of like Dragon Ball Z. Does the fact that they need to go into the hyperbolic time chamber to train for like 5 years to beat Cell make the Frieza fight any less stakes? The stakes of the Frieza fight any less? You know?
Yeah, I suppose. I just think with, like, the Willem Dafoe thing in particular, I'm like, he was such a great villain, and the drive of his character is so fundamentally linked to his hatred of Spider-Man, and to just have, like, another character be like, here's a syringe full of stuff that you can put in you, and now you're not a villain anymore, was just a little bit like, it's a kind of plot contrivance that's a bit dumb on its own, and I was like, okay, fine, but I didn't find myself. I found myself taken out of the movie by that being the thing that they were trying to do, rather than,
fair enough,
I don't know, him talking him into being a better person or whatever. Which maybe that would have been ridiculous in its own way.
Convincing the Goblin part of him that he's actually a good guy.
Yeah.
I think that's fair enough, to be honest with you. I will say that whole idea of, like, fixing the villains. This film basically went exactly as I thought it would. There was no surprises for me in this film. I thought that, like, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I couldn't believe that I enjoyed it so much, because it literally was exactly what I thought it was going to be. And that's the only thing that surprised me was I didn't know that there was going to be this whole fixing the villains storyline.
Yeah, that was a kind of left turn that I didn't see coming, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, right. I think we've done our due diligence as professional podcasters, and we are we're now going to talk for a little while about the spoilery stuff in this movie, because there is some stuff to talk about, I think, that's important, and we're going to do it now. So if you don't want to be spoiled on Spider-Man No Way Home, tune out.
Tune out now, right now. Do it now.
Go and watch it.
Spoilers.
Go and be one of those 500 billion people who are going to see this in Bezos's pleasure dome. And we're gonna still be here talking about spoilers. So you have been warned.
Yeah.
Right, Anthony. First off the bat, I'm not going to talk about the thing that probably everyone thinks I'm going to talk about here. I want to talk about a couple of tear-jerking moments in this that, for me, were the single best moments in the entire movie. So, fucking Aunt May dies.
Yeah, I saw it coming.
She gets a glider. Well, I mean, you know, as soon as she says the Uncle Ben quote, it's like,
100%.
100%. Aunt May, your days might be numbered.
Yeah.
and then she gets a glider in the back.
Yeah.
There's a few tear-jerking moments in this, and I think they work. And I'm not a difficult cry at all in movies, but as I've said before, I'm quite cynical when it comes to Marvel stuff. I'm normally quite hardened to their emotional kind of high notes. But they definitely worked on me. You know, like it was.
Tom Holland is a force of nature. He's much too good an actor to be Spider-Man. You know?
That's probably true, to be honest. But yes, I mean, he was great in that moment, and I think that there's a moment, probably I don't know if it's the best scene because there's not a lot in it, but there's a moment after Aunt May's death that is so beautifully shot. It's the moment where like Parker's like on the roof with his mask off, staring out at a night sky with like a neon sign kind of illuminating his face, and it's just this like wonderful moment, both visually and from a character stance, and really doesn't feel like something that belongs in a Marvel movie, because it feels like the director being like, no, we're going to stop and breathe and spend some time pretty much silently with this character as he kind of processes this tragedy that's just befallen him, that's kind of his fault. And it was wonderful. It really was wonderful. And I think there is a real heart to this movie behind the kind of gloss of all the big comebacks and all the big reveals and the nostalgia. There's a real heart to this movie, which the thing I was going to kind of complain about with the Holland movies, and I think we've talked about this before, is I don't like the fact that in pretty much every movie that this version of Spider-Man has been in, it feels like a grown-up turns up and tells him to go and punch a dragon that's going to eat the universe or something, and it just turns into this enormous world-ending horror, and there's very little time for Peter Parker is trying to balance his relationship with MJ and his friends and his photography job while fighting crime. I feel like the Peter Parker stuff just gets swallowed and thrown off to the side a lot, and it just turns into a big Marvel punch fest. And this didn't have that much of that. I really wanted more, but there was a little bit of it, and what there was I thought was very good.
Yeah, no. I agree with you. I think as well, like you think about, like, obviously you had the whole Doctor Strange stuff with the sky shattering and all these, you know. Yeah. Obviously there was the huge existential threat. Having said that, the actual main part of just the villain fights, it wasn't actually that big scale. It was actually quite small scale. Like, you know, what's going to happen? They're going to kill Spider-Man? Like, what? You know, what else is going to happen? Like, they're not going to end the world. So maybe eventually give them enough time. Those emotional, like, sort of slow points, I think they did a really good job at them, and it means that I can forgive certain editing decisions in the first, like, sort of 20-30 minutes, because I feel like there was a lot of very quick, snappy stuff in that first 20 minutes, and to the point where sometimes when I watch a film, I don't agree with some of the choices to end, like, literally cutting away to a different scene, like within half a second of someone saying something. Like, sometimes it was too snappy for me, but it makes a lot of sense when you actually see what they were saving the time for later on, and I think they made the right decision.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I think that finale was really beautiful. So I'm gonna spoil, I guess, the end of the movie here, but the movie ends with Doctor Strange having to basically cast the spell to make everyone who's ever known Peter Parker forget about him.
It's the classic, I'm going to give you what I was going to give you at the start, except now you know, not only is no one going to know you, but your Aunt May's also dead. So he has to take the solution that he didn't want, but it's even worse than the thing he didn't want at the start. It's the classic.
And he has to, you know, be the hero and accept that that maybe that is better for his friends and for MJ, which is kind of the implication of that's what he's accepting at the end of this movie.
She's still wearing the necklace. She's still wearing the necklace.
Yeah. So the kind of send off between Zendaya and Tom Holland is beautiful. It's really beautiful. You know, these two young, attractive actors, like, just getting a moment to, you know, have a romantic climax to their love story that's developed over 3 whole movies. I thought it was great. I really did think it was great. And normally, honestly, Marvel movies, the bit where they lose me is in the final third, in the climax, when it just turns into a bunch of people punching each other, because it's normally just a big mess. But it really worked for me, that bit.
Yeah, and they found a way now somehow to have Tom Holland's Spider-Man potentially be just a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man now.
I mean, he's in the classic suit. Yeah. He's got a complete fresh start. Like, I love that at the end of this. It's like he's in the classic suit. That we're doing essentially a soft reboot of Spider-Man as a character.
But he has the whole history of everything that's happened, you know.
Yeah, it's a great way to restart or to do a new trilogy. I can't wait to see what they do with him, because I do think the implication is heavily that he is going to be that classic Spider-Man now.
Yeah, he doesn't. Even though technically at the end, like, we're not going to get. I think if you tried to get into the details of what does it mean that he's not there anymore, you would just quickly confuse yourself. It's not about that, you know. It's not about that. But like, I would imagine this Spider-Man, because, you know, J. Jonah Jameson was still saying at the end, he was still saying, we don't know who Spider-Man is, reveal yourself, you know. So he's still known. Having said that, I'd like to see, like, obviously he's still known, and the stuff he did is still there, like the necklace for MJ. Was he still in the Avengers? Like, do the Avengers know? Obviously, the Avengers don't know who he is. Yeah. But do they remember fighting with Spider-Man, if not Peter Parker? You know, obviously they don't know it's Peter Parker, but is he still technically a member of the Avengers? Because the world still knows who Spider-Man is.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I feel like they probably do remember Spider-Man, but not that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Which means it is kind of soft reboot, but at the same time, he can still be in the Avengers stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they've left themselves enough wiggle room to bring back, you know, Zendaya when she inevitably remembers that she's in love with Spider-Man.
But I also do like as well, like, the idea of, like, Tony Stark's fortunes and stuff. They're kind of going now.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it was sort of setting up Tom Holland was going to be the new Tony Stark, and he was going to have all the money, whereas he doesn't have it anymore. So are the Avengers going to have any money now? Like, you know, is the next Avengers, like, sort of big arc going to be actually way less than the last one? Maybe the films are going to be completely different because everyone's not in these high-tech Tony Stark suits. Maybe it's much more grounded now.
I would love that to be the case, because I mean, that's like, when I talk about how it annoyed me in these Spider-Man movies that a grown-up would turn up and tell him to punch a dragon or whatever. It was like, kind of like Iron Man and his son, which I understand why they did it, but it was like, get Iron Man out of my Spider-Man movies, please. Like, I don't like Iron Man as a character particularly. Spider-Man certainly doesn't need him as a father figure, and it always bugged me. So it's really interesting to see him separated from that wealth. Obviously,
now
he's got the memory of
May. He's got the memory of May now. It's not Tony Stark now. It's May for him. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, one big thing left to talk about. We've left it till the end. I don't actually think this is that important or that impressive,
as
but
I said,
it
wasn't
is
surprised
nice.
by anything.
No. So I'm gonna drop in one tiny thing first, and that is to say, I was having a conversation with Anthony not 2 weeks ago. We were at a board game night with Emmett, in fact, and I said Spider-Man's in court in one of the scenes in that trailer, and if you're a superhero in a court in New York, you call Matt Murdock to defend you. And wouldn't you bloody know it, Daredevil turns up in this movie, which I'll be honest, I was more excited for Daredevil turning up than I was for the other reveal, which is what everyone expected, that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire roll up as their respective Spider-Men in this movie, and do Spider-Man stuff.
You know what's weird about it, right? Because we don't have to talk too much about it. Like, I think we both probably enjoyed it, but I love seeing 3 Spider-Men swinging together. It was so cool.
That was great. I did get a little when that scene, that bit at the end where it kind of does the slow motion and all the Spider-Men are swinging in. I did get a little kind of like childlike. That's pretty cool.
That's
feeling.
Pretty cool. But I will say. There's not much to speak about. Like, we could talk about how they referenced memes and stuff. Like, I don't really know if that's... do what you want to do, Disney. But what I don't really need to talk about too much about it, because the fact of the matter is, Konrad, it weirdly felt right. I don't know. There was something about it that just didn't feel like I was watching something that I hadn't seen before. I didn't feel like I'm finally seeing 3 Spider-Men together. It just felt like, yeah, this makes sense actually. The chemistry between the 3 was good. It felt like when seeing Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield together, it felt like we had seen them together before, and Tom Holland was the only new one. It was so strange, like how familiar it all was.
I felt like
me.
I didn't mind it like at all. And there were bits of it I definitely did enjoy, but I felt like the 3 Spider-Men stuff like kind of it wore thin on me really quickly. Like with
you mean the characters' reactions to it?
Well, not even just the characters' reactions to it. Just there's a couple of scenes where they're all talking to each other about their experiences, and it just the dialogue didn't feel like it worked a lot of the time to me. I didn't hate it, but it's just like, you've been into space, like and all this stuff. And then like Tobey Maguire being like, "You're amazing" to Andrew Garfield, and it's like, yeah, okay, I get it, amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, actually, no, I was fully into all that. I think. I was fully into that. It's a spider, like they're Spider-Man. You know what I mean? They're gonna be saying cringy stuff.
But the stuff that I enjoyed was there as well. Like I enjoyed them talking about Gwen Stacy. I really enjoyed Andrew Garfield's moment of saving Zendaya's life. And
except I agree. I loved the moment. It was great, fantastic. But Jesus, the speed at which that shot. From the moment we saw him jumping to get her to the moment he was holding her on the ground must have been a second and a half.
Yeah, it wasn't that long.
It didn't look realistic at all.
We got to get back to the star of the show. Garfield's done. He'll never work in this town again.
That was so fast. Like I was like, hang on, how did he just catch her? Like it was literally like a video game.
Yeah. I mean that entire sequence was very rapidly cut together, but yeah, I don't know. Their dialogue, they're kind of like quirky. Oh, we're all Spider-Man and we've all had different experiences. Stuff didn't really work for me a lot of the time, but
worked for me. I loved as well the Tobey Maguire as a youth passer line. I think
that was very funny.
He did look like one.
Yeah.
He did look
like a youth passer. Yeah, he looked. Yeah, he came in dressed like a man who's close to his 50s, which I think Tobey Maguire probably is now.
Yeah, I did like exactly. I did like moments where you wouldn't really see this in a Spider-Man film. I don't know why, but just whenever they say to Andrew Garfield, prove that you're Spider-Man, and he just puts his hand on the roof and just hangs there. I'm just like, actually, you know what? It's really not really it doesn't feel like a part of a movie. It's just a stupid joke, but I actually really like that. I thought it was
I like that scene. I think that's okay because it's just him interacting with the Spider-Man Spider-Friend's family and grandma.
What about the craziest thing of all?
What's that?
His sidekick Ned has magical powers.
Oh yeah, that's just ridiculous. I guess he's going to be the Sorcerer Supreme after Wong dies, whenever that's going to happen. Probably in Sam Raimi's next Doctor Strange movie, they'll kill off Wong. He's had his fun, and now he's going to die. And
that's crazy. It's funny. Everyone, I think the big rumor of the years has been that this character is going to be like the Hobgoblin or something. I don't see that at all, to be honest with you. And there was nice little jokes in this one where they were saying about how their best friends betrayed them, and then Ned went up to Peter and was really didn't want to talk to him or whatever because he didn't want to be killed by Spider-Man.
Yeah, he doesn't want to betray him and die a horrible death, which is fair enough. That is fair enough. Okay, so final thoughts. How did you feel about this overall?
I really enjoyed it. I take the criticisms that you've had there. I think I've had a few as well. But overall, I think we would both be lying if we didn't say it was a good cinema trip. It was. Yeah. It was a good film, and I think that I didn't think I would walk out thinking to myself, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do in the next Spider-Man because. All I've been thinking about the last month was Spider-Man, and I've come out thinking I can't wait to see the next Spider-Man. So that's pretty well that they've done that,
I think that's definitely true of me. Far From Home, I was a bit like, okay, I'm getting. I loved Homecoming. I loved seeing Spider-Man in something again, and Far From Home, I was a bit like, I'm starting to get a bit of fatigue with this now. But absolutely, by the end of this, I was like, you know what, I'm really on board with whatever they do with Spider-Man next. Which is all I could really ask for from this. So did you end up giving it a rating? We've got to give it the arbitrary rating.
Yeah, like I think I'll probably give it. I'll probably give it 4-star. Okay. I'm not going to give it 5, but which a lot of people are, critics included, which is understandable. But I think there was enough room for improvement that I would give it a 4.
Okay, I think I gave it a 3. I think I gave it a 3. It was close to a 4. There were moments that were knocking on the door of a 4, but I just didn't think the healing the villain stuff.
The Tobey Maguire backline didn't give it to you?
Oh, I hated that. I hated that entire bit. That entire conversation shouldn't have been in there. It was awful. But that's the joy of movies, folks. Is sometimes you have disagreements about how good they are. What was I going to say? Oh, we need to do our question that we always answer, as we always do. I was reading through my script and I was like, what have I missed here? I can't just finish. Okay, so Anthony, based on that, what is your favourite movie this week?
My favourite movie this week is just to say something different, because we've been talking about it for 45 minutes. Encanto, the new Disney musical. I went to see it with my son. Call me basic, but Lin-Manuel Miranda does it for me, and I've been listening to the soundtrack, and it's great.
Okay, lovely. Well, he makes a good soundtrack. He's good at that. My favorite movie is I'm gonna say Knives Out, because I watched that yesterday, and
it's a good film.
That's still a great movie. Okay, right. Well, that is gonna do it for us for not 1 but 2 weeks. Here on the Best Movie Podcast Ever, because we're taking a break for Christmas, so we can be with our loved ones.
You've had 52 in a row. You can take 1 more week off.
Exactly. Yeah, can't believe it. Thank you for sticking with us for the entire year, and we'll hope to see you in 2022, where we continue to talk bollocks about movies. Thank you to Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot for the use of our theme song. You can find links to their stuff down in the description below. And seriously, thank you to you for joining us. If you're new, or if you joined us right at the beginning and you've watched us the whole way through, it's been amazing. Thank you so much. If you're not subscribed, if you've been watching for 52 or listening for 52 weeks and you're not subscribed, what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing?
What are you doing? With a Culture Cave on YouTube, with the Best Movie Podcast Ever on podcasting apps, just do one of them. Just do one of them. That's all I ask. And get involved in the comments. Let us know what you've been watching. It's always interesting to hear how people feel about these movies, to see how wrong we are. And we will see you same time, same place next year.
Oh, and cut.